Good evening, and today is Tuesday, it is Monday. I am reading instead of actually knowing the date. So today is Monday, July 12th. I have 5:01 p.m., and we are here to call the Committee of the Whole special meeting to order. Pat, could you take roll call for us, please?
Albright is excused. Arnold?
Here.
Gray?
Present.
McCabe?
Here.
Motive?
Present.
Piperone?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Perfect. And the meeting has been noticed accordingly. Next up is to approve the agenda. Any discussion or concerns? All right. Motion to approve.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Next up is citizen comments. Is there anyone? Okay, perfect. Moving right along. Item number 5 is to convene to close session per 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically the fire chief's salary. Do I have a motion to convene to close session for the reasons read?
I'll make a motion to convene closed session for the reasons read.
Calder Motive will second.
Perfect. We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, roll call. Thank you, Pat.
Arnold?
Here.
Gray?
Aye.
McCabe? Motive?
Aye.
Piperone?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Perfect. We are in closed session. We will be coming back to the air momentarily.
I will make a motion to reconvene into open session. Aye.
Right. Right. We're back in open session, and the next up on the agenda is to adjourn. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Perfect. We stand adjourned, and next up will be the city council regular meeting.
Okay.
It's Monday, we're not on.
Good evening. I am going to call the Columbus Common Council regular meeting to order. It is Monday, July 12th, 2021, and it's 5:10 PM. I'm going to ask our clerk, Pat Gable, to do the roll call for us.
Albright is excused. Arnold?
Here.
Gray?
Present.
McCabe? Here. Motive?
Present.
Piperone?
Here.
Reed?
And if you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight's meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. And now I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Still.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, seconds?
Great, it has been moved and seconded to approve tonight's agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And we do have some people who may be signing in to speak, so we will give them a minute to do that. No? Are people interested in speaking? Oh, okay, great. So we don't have anyone who has signed in to speak tonight. So now I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a small change in the minutes.
Okay?
Sorry, I have a change on the minutes. On number 4 for the regular meeting, it needs to be in the past tense on the second sentence where it says Ellefson, Sarah cannot talk tonight. Ellefson states, it should be stated. And then,
Okay.
I'm looking for a clarification on number 18. It says memo has been mailed to applicant and a voicemail was left with the applicant. Do we need to clarify that at all and say that maybe it's regarding the chief's denial of application or concern? Which 18?
I guess my opinion would be that we don't, just because it's pretty clear that Chief Weiner was recommending a denial. So, but if you think it needs to be more clearly stated,
I do, but it's not a big deal. Okay, that would be
Oh, okay.
nice.
Well-
Thank you.
yeah, let's do that then.
Number 4, was that number 4 on the committee of the whole special meeting?
That was sorry, I gotta go back. That was the regular meeting.
There are two number 4s. It's not the one under new business.
It's under correspondence communications, and then the second sentence starts with need, and all the way down towards the end where it says Ellefson State.
We still need to approve the agenda, and then we can also approve the minutes as the next step with the amendments.
Okay.
Or did we do the
Well, we approved the agenda, but now we're working on the consent agenda. So do we need a different motion then? Approve it with the changes noted?
I have a small change as well.
Oh, okay, Paul, sorry.
Committee of the whole, number 7, it's ever so minor, but the 3 windows in the council chambers where the 3 bays should have been were the 3 bays.
Number 7, I'm,
Committee of the whole,
okay. Oh, okay,
There we go.
gotcha.
it's ever so minor, but
Oh, I see, yeah.
Then Alder Gray will move to approve the consent agenda with the alterations noted.
Alder Motif was second.
So it has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda with the changes noted. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So we have approved the consent agenda. Now we're moving on to new business, and the first order of new business is to consider and take action on compensation for the fire chief selected by the Police and Fire Commission, which is something we just discussed in the Committee of the Whole. And so I'm looking for a motion.
Alder Gray will move to approve the recommended salary for the fire chief of $32,000.
Reed seconds.
It has been moved and seconded that we move forward with the proposed compensation for fire chief in the amount of $32,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please, well, we'll do a roll call on this, right?
Gray,
Aye.
McCabe. Motif,
Aye.
Piperone,
aye.
Reed. Motion carries.
Okay. All right, moving on to number 2. Consider and take action on acceptance of donations to the fire department. And this is something that we talked about at our last meeting. The Eugene Niehoff estate would like to donate $20,000 to be put toward the restoration of the fire department's 1925 American LaFrance antique fire engine. And we had a presentation on that. It looked very interesting. And so I am looking for a motion or, yes?
We're approving future donations. We already approved that.
Oh, okay. acceptance of okay. Oh, we're approving the future donations for the restoration. I gotcha. Okay, so what we are approving here is future donations, because we already have the $20,000 donation from the estate, and they are asking for future donations to go towards the restoration of the antique truck. And does anyone have any questions about this? Thanks for clarifying that. Okay. So I'm looking for a motion.
McCabe will make a motion to pre-approve any future donations for the restoration of the fire department's antique fire truck.
I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve future donations for the restoration of the fire department's antique truck. Is there any further discussion? And we don't need a roll call. Okay. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Okay, and the next item that we're going to discuss is taking action on the Rotary Park donations and potential surplus equipment. So the Rotary Club would like to make a monetary donation to the city for the purchase of new picnic tables at the open shelter in Rotary Park, 6 to 8 tables. And what the Recreation Department and DPW is asking is that we accept the donation and approval of the Rotary Club of Columbus Fall River receiving back 4 of the existing wooden tables for their own use that they had originally donated. And although it's not known for sure, it looks like the amount is going to be over $2,000 that the Rotary Club will be donating to the city. Is there any discussion on this item? Or any questions? Okay. So I am looking for a motion.
Alder Gray will move to approve the donation from the Rotary Club of the 6 to 8 tables, and as well as allow them to retain ownership of the existing tables.
Alder Motif will second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we move forward with accepting the donation from the Rotary Club, as well as approving the return of the existing wooden tables to the Rotary Fall River, Columbus Fall River Rotary Club. Any further discussion? And do we need a roll call for this one?
You're disposing of assets, it might not hurt if there's a
Okay.
question.
All right, we'll do a roll call then.
McCabe. Motive.
Aye.
Piperone.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. Okay, now we're moving on to item number 4, consider and take action on the Communications and Multimedia Coordinator position description. And this was in your packet. We're preparing to recruit a media coordinator, and a revised position description has been developed after consultation with the Cable Commission. Initial feedback from the Cable Commission was that they wanted to see the media coordinator manage the cable website and resources so they are regularly updated, cover and broadcast city news and events, broadcast useful information for residents, and create content for the channel, which I think sounds wonderful. And they also, the city staff had identified enhancing the media coordinator's role in communicating information to the public across platforms to ensure that there was more timely, relevant, and accurate information disseminated regarding the city. So, I am looking for, well, first of all, are there any questions on this particular item? And if not, I'm looking for a motion.
Alder Gray will move to approve the job description for the Communications and Media Coordinator position.
I'll second that.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we approve the Communications and Multimedia Coordinator position description. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And now we are moving on to item number 5, which is to consider and take action on claims in the amount of $100,534.01. And these are the monthly claims through June 29th of 2021. Is there any discussion on the claims? Any questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the claims in the amount of $100,534.01.
McCabe seconds.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the claims in the amount stated. Is there any discussion? So we do a roll call on this one, all right?
Molded.
Aye.
Pifferone.
Aye.
Reed. Gray.
Aye.
McCabe. Unanimous.
Great, okay. Now we move on to the report of city officers, and we'll have the city administrator go first.
All right, thank you. Just a few quick updates, all personnel related. Our maintenance worker positions are all filled at Public Works effective today, with the latest employee starting this morning. So that's good news. Wastewater treatment plant is also going to be full very soon with the operators, with the new operator B starting next Monday. And just today, the Public Works Director, Jerry Lentz, started, and he got to spend all day with me, and we toured several of the buildings and got to go interact with the crew, have lunch with the crew, and I think it's just kind of an exciting time, refilling all the ranks and getting everyone onto the teams. So lots of things happening, but we're moving in a good direction.
Great, thank you. That's very good to hear. Well, the 4th of July has come and gone, and as most people sitting here know, it's always been kind of a big deal in Columbus. This year was no different, especially after not having the opportunity to celebrate the way we usually do. 3 of our city council members, Sarah Motiff, Shelley Albright, Ian Gray, and I were honored to be invited to, along with all the council members, but we were the ones who were able to be there, to be included in the 4th of July parade. And we had a great time, although we did run out of candy, much to our surprise, because we had so much. And I want to thank Mark Rhodes for donating the convertible that we used to ride in style. A big thank you to Colt Peterson and Cassidy Olson, who agreed to be our helpers by walking along and handing out candy to the attendees. And I want to thank Paul Pifferone, our very own council member, who's a member of the committee, and all the other volunteers who work so hard all year long to pull off this big event. And it brings, thousands of people to the community, would you say, Paul? Okay. I said hundreds and hundreds, and then I thought it's probably more than that, isn't it? I think if you are interested in volunteering, you're always looking for volunteers. And I think the committee would welcome anybody's help for the 2022 celebration. I'm going to put in a pitch again for the farmers market, which is happening on Wednesday. I just went to their Facebook page earlier today, and they have a list of all the vendors, so you'll know what you can pick up there. It's every Wednesday from 3 to 6 at 150 North Ludington Street, which is right downtown. It seems like they're getting more and more people who are interested in bringing different kinds of things, produce and arts and crafts and popcorn and all kinds of stuff. So if you're interested, stop by. It's going to be going on until sometime in the fall. And I think this too brings people to our community, and it's a really good thing for us to remember to support. I'd also like to remind everybody that tomorrow there is a special election for Assembly District 37. This seat has been vacated due to a special election in April to replace our state senator, and our former representative, John Jagler, is now our state senator, so his seat has gone vacant. And as I've mentioned before, it's a little unusual this year. Both candidates are from Columbus, so get out there and vote. That's it for me. And so, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Gabe, seconds.
So it has been moved and seconded that we adjourn the meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay.
Does anybody need any time between meetings, or do you want to jump right into the committee of the whole?
Oh, that's the old.
Good evening and welcome. I have 5:29 on Monday, July 12th, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Committee of the Whole. With that, Pat, could you take roll call for us?
Albright is excused. Arnold?
Here.
Gray?
Present?
McCabe? Here. Motive?
Present.
Piperone?
Here.
Reed?
All present and accounted for. And next up is, well, this meeting has been properly noticed. Next up is to approve the agenda. Any discussion or alterations? All right, then I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
I will make a motion to approve the agenda.
Seconds.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And next up is citizen comments. So I understand that we have a few people signed up to speak. Thank you much. First up, Ron, did you want to speak now or just?
wanted to be on the list, and then I'll speak when number 6 comes up.
Okay, perfect. And then I will give the rest of you a moment to speak now, and Ron will speak further during the item later. Can we welcome Ann Rader, is it? Yeah, if you'd like to take the podium.
May I also defer for now and speak for not?
Right now is just for citizen comment. We don't typically have a back and forth and do citizen comments during the actual agenda item. Ron brought this to us, so I'm going to allow him to more take care of it, but
If I might go, that's part of that number 6 discussion.
unfortunately, that does not fit well with how we work. But I would welcome anyone to speak now if you'd like to, Ann.
Is there a means to show pictures and videos from the flash drive within this?
I know Ron Curtis had submitted previously, and we prepared for 8 photos that we have loaded up and ready to go, but we don't really have the ability to load the pictures here.
Okay.
It's already on the computer network right now.
Okay, I take it these are in addition to that? So unfortunately, we won't be able to accommodate that tonight. I apologize. And if you would like to, there's a little face with like the lines coming out. We'll turn your microphone on. Perfect. It's on for you. She got it. Now you turned it off because she turned it on. There you go.
Okay,
Awesome. If you'd like to just state your name and address and go ahead.
okay. My name is Ann Rader. I live at 317 Fairway Drive, down in Parkview area. I'm here tonight to address the issue of flooding in the Parkview area. My husband and I moved here in the summer of 2007. The following summer, was the flooding of 2008, which many of you are probably familiar with. Our house in particular at 317 Fairway Drive was dramatically impacted by this flooding, as well as the house right next door to us at 319 Fairway Drive. The quick overview, and I won't take up too much of the time here, the quick overview is that the water came rushing down Brookside Lane directly into my house and the next door neighbor's house at 319 Fairway Drive. Came right up to the front door, went right through the channel between our two homes. The video that I had intended to show you gives you both a visual as well as the sound of rapids rushing through that channel of our homes. You can literally see the ripples of water as they pass through our homes. Their home suffered significant damage. Our home suffered some damage. The water, I mean, it was called the 100-year flood, so it definitely was a significant issue. Since then, measures have been made to remedy this. However, I'm here tonight to ask the council to pursue this further. There are more steps that can be taken to remedy the floodwaters in this area of the city. Many homes are impacted because of this floodwaters. We have had the water levels come up many times since then. 2010 was another year, 2014, and most recently in 2020, the floodwaters came up again. The house next door to me had to pretty much redo their entire basement because of this. It's been 10 years since this flood in 2010. My home and many other homes in the area have since then been put into a floodplain. They redrew the floodplain maps. We are now on the floodplain. My husband and I are now required to carry flood insurance, as are many of the homes in that area. That is a significant expense to a family. And as I think of all the families in that neighborhood, many of us are just families trying to raise kids. And when that expense is added to it, it definitely is a factor that I would think the city would consider of their residents. Along with the damage that goes along to the houses, the carpet that gets ripped up, the floorboards of garages that have had to be ripped out and replaced, all the damage that comes along with this. The heartbreaking part is that there have been suggestions made due to the study that was completed by the team. I think it was, I don't want to say the year, I want to say 2011 maybe. There are steps that still can be taken. And what I am asking of the city council is if you could please consider to move forward on this. If this issue could be added to the budget for 2022. I believe that's what the topic is coming up later on in the evening. I am making a personal ask on behalf of the citizens of our neighborhood to please move on this item and to please consider it an issue that is affecting many citizens within the city of Columbus. It is an important issue. It's been 10 years now, and I guess I'm speaking on behalf of all of them that it would be in many people's best interest to try to alleviate the water issues around that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And next up, we have Bruce Zahn.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Zahn. I live at 315 Fairway Drive, right next door to the Rader family. And nice job, Ann. I'm not going to take up a lot of your time. I just want to mention that my wife and I built our house there in 1998, and so we've been living there for over 20 years. And Ann did a nice job of explaining how this has unfolded, but I just want to mention that during the time that we've been living there, there have been new developments around us that are connected to Parkview, to where we live, like Kestrel Ridge. Enerpac has built up there, a lot of concrete, the hospital, wonderful clinics, don't get me wrong, these are great places. I'm just saying things have changed, the landscape has changed. I think it's very evident when you look at the study that has been done, I believe it was about 2011, that the water runoff has increased and the existing network of canal availability is not adequate to handle water. And so the prevalence of this problem has increased in frequency for us. And even though we are probably 6-7 inches below our average in precipitation right now for the year, just within the last few weeks, we've had some storms that have gone through. 2-3 inches of rain in a couple hours would put some of our homes in water, and it could happen real quick. And we're not asking for, miracles. We know that there has been a study, that there have been recommendations. We know and we appreciate the things that have been done. I myself would like to see the culvert removed from the bridge right by the high school on the bike path. That culvert goes from that bridge over toward the other bridge by the city garage, by the city building in the park. And I think that removing that culvert would alleviate quite a bit of our problems. And I think that could be filled in with the crushed rock that we see next to the deer pen. That would not be liability or a danger to people. And I think just as a suggestion, that would help alleviate some of the backup that happens once we get any hard rain. And it could be 1.5 to 3 inches, and that could happen pretty quickly. So once again, just as a concerned citizen and neighbor, could you please take a look at this, listen to our neighbor Ron, who's going to go through this in more detail, and take some action if you could, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. And next up, we have Peggy Schleicher. I hope I'm...
I agree with both Ann and Bruce. They pretty much covered everything I would say.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you, Peggy. Then is there anyone else that maybe didn't sign up that wants to speak now?
I'm a neighbor in Parkview, also in that same area. My name is Jim Beck. I live at 312 Fairway Drive. And the main thing that really hit me, besides what they've mentioned, seeing a picture of, I think it was Ann, out in the road. The water was up to her knees, and there's stuff swirling around her, and it wasn't good stuff swirling around. So I think it's, in addition to everything else, it's a health hazard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak tonight? All right. Then with that, I will move on. Oh, Paul?
I was contacted by a resident who could not be here and asked me if I could read or we could convey his words to the council. I had mentioned that to Pat earlier, and she said I could probably just read it right now.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
This is from Matt's and Gina True. I'm not sure their address.
321 Fairway.
Thank you, 321 Fairway. And he is asking for the culvert to be removed within the next 15 months as the anticipated public emergency remediation costs now exceed the city's projected culvert removal cost. This is apart from private property loss, diminishing value of taxable lots, and temporary mitigation costs, as the data is public and multiple engineers have confirmed the berm near the culvert effectively meets 40 residential parcels plus the golf course and part of Fireman's Park, an accidental retention pond. Further, inaction of the city may be at minimum a deterrent for ownership investment along the Second Ward Creek. Given the age of the public report and severity of the issue, one could reasonably expect this would now be a top priority in accordance to how we address aging roads. Please push to schedule a culvert removal date and allocate for it while it's still financially favorable. And then he says, further, the first 400 yards of the Second Ward Creek in a municipal golf course are of constricted flow from compromised banks. It allows approximately 1/3 the flow rate compared to the region just upstream between Fairway Drive and Brookside and Eveline. Whether by city or by volunteers, I would like to know what it would take to restore laminar flow in this region. I would be happy to work with you or under one of the fine people we have organizing this to help in any possible way. Having lived in Columbus a year now, I wanted to share how grateful I am for the history, the culture, and the people here.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Paul, and thank you. It was Michael Chu, you said?
Max Chu.
Max Chu. Awesome. Thank you. Then with that, I will move on to the item number 5, the committee commissions and minutes. We have this CWL, the HLPC, this special, the library, the PFC, senior citizen, and tourism commissions and committees. Were there any questions or comments on any of that? Okay. And then item number 6 is exactly what we were just talking about. What was that?
Do you mind if I kick it off? I cover my memo, and then Ron had called me earlier today, and he said he would maybe go and discuss some of the pictures he sent, if that's okay.
Okay,
with you.
yeah, perfect. Thank you.
So as we've been talking about the culvert removal related to the Parkview subdivision, Ron has again approached the city. Ron's been very attentive to this issue and really good to work with because he keeps bringing the information forward, and he has in the past kind of expressed his understanding of the limitations that the city has, but he's continuing down the path of, seeking, I guess, ultimately the removal of the culvert. One of the things that Ron had talked to me about was we had some discussions last year about funding mechanisms, and ultimately these tend to be funding issues, where the money comes from to make these happen. And several of those were, worked on, but currently none are being pursued right now. Looking back to that Ruckert and Milky study from 2011, some of the recommendations, many of the recommendations have been accomplished with removing of trees, dredging of some of the Second Ward Creek, as well as opening up one section of the culvert in Fireman's Park. We also have the CDBG grant program that we applied for, and so we're leveraging that money to do more than $500,000 of stormwater work, which is kind of downstream from the Parkview subdivision. So it won't directly benefit them in their immediate neighborhood. But one of the things we talked about was the importance of kind of structuring the projects in the right order. And one of the concerns we have is that if we open up a lot of capacity upstream without making sure downstream has the capacity to handle it, what impact that might have and how that might change the flooding pattern, or maybe flood other people that don't flood now, or flood people at a more severe result, I guess. So the city has been making progress. I think we would all like to, have all of the projects accomplished. But the timing is kind of ideal because we are looking at getting some budget priorities in order in the next couple weeks. So this is a good conversation to have, I guess, as far as if the city council, after kind of listening to Ron's information and the other information, and also Jason Leith, I believe, is in-house if there's questions about the engineering report, to see if there's direction to staff about funding priorities or any of the other related elements with the stormwater funding.
Perfect. Thank you, Kyle. And with that, would you like to take the podium, Ron? It's the little face with like the 3 lines right at the base of your microphone.
Okay.
Oh.
Am I on? Okay. All right. First, I would like to thank
the mayor and the council for getting this on the agenda again. We've talked about it a number of times in the past. And there's been good discussion about it, but to date, we haven't been able to get it resolved. And one of the things that I did was to pay attention to your discussions about the budget process. At the last council meeting, you unanimously approved the process and the timeline. And so at the next council meeting, you're supposed to be giving the city directions as to what their budget priorities will be. And so that's why I thought tonight would be a timely time to get here to discuss this. I want to thank the city. They've been very open with discussions about the different aspects of the whole matter. I tend to talk with my hands. The whole matter. And so they've been very, very helpful. As Kyle has said, he and I have talked a number of times, and that for a large part was to help me understand, what's going on, so that when I come, I can speak with at least some sense of understanding of the whole topic. So. Also, I apologize in advance if I get lost because I come down with a very severe case of vertigo today. And so things kind of are going around on me. But I think I can get it done. And so then with that, we'll move on. I did put together a memo that was attached to the agenda item, and so I don't want to go through all the information that's in there again. But I would like to summarize a few aspects as we go along. As Ann mentioned, the 2008 flooding was very severe, and that sort of got the ball rolling on the whole thing. There were homes where water actually entered and damage was done, and so then there was that aspect. There was the cost of cleanup. There was a whole variety of different things. The floodplain map was redone. The homes then become part of the floodplain, and then lenders started requiring flood insurance and so forth. So there were two reports that were done, and it's kind of interesting. I went back and looked through it. One was the February 2011 report, which was dealing with the 2008 flooding, okay? And and that was a final report. It came out with recommendations, and and a number of things were done, but the one that it described as having, in quotes, the most remarkable impact on flood elevations in the Parkview subdivision was removing the culverts in the park. Okay, that one's obviously not done. That's why we're here talking about it. There was another report that was done then in March of 2017, which kind of looked at the issues again. And that report came about as a result of the washout of the culvert at the deer pen. Okay, and so it looked at that. It also looked at the upstream culvert that Bruce was mentioning between the two bridges, and basically recommended the same thing, that it be done, or that it be removed. Interestingly, in that period of time between 2011 and 2017, the projected cost of the removal and the one in 2017 included removing the one by the deer pen, which now has been taken care of. But in 2011, the projected cost for removing both of them and doing the work was $200,000. In 2017, when it was looked at again, the projected cost of both of them was $716,000. Quite a dramatic increase. Okay, and so that's part of my point, is that the further we put this off, what we're going to be looking at is similar increases. Okay, one of the things that was interesting with the reports is it showed the flooding after effects, okay? But it really didn't give a good sense of what was happening during the flooding event itself. And so those are some photos that I sent to Kyle, and I asked if he would share with us so that you could get a better understanding of what it is that we're looking at. Okay, on the screen, everybody can see it. That is 2008 flooding. And you can see that there's a home in the background, and that's the one next to Ann that had the most significant damage. Water went in the front door, out the back door. And you can see all the stuff floating around in there, and that's what Ann was standing in. Okay, did you move on, Kyle? Another shot. This is right on the corner, and this one is looking up the street. Okay, you can see what the fire hydrant is at there. It's quite deep in the water. Okay, Kyle. This is another one across the street. That's Ann and Kyle's house there. They're standing out there going, what now? Okay. Okay, Kyle. And then this is the front of our house and looking up Brookside with the water coming on down. And so we had water entry also, tore up things in our basement. Ended up getting our property reassessed lower because now our property has been devalued some. Okay, next one, Kyle. This is not showing very well, but anyway, this is water inside of the Raider garage. And you got a trash can that's floating, and the car's sitting there, and so on. So that's pretty significant stuff. So now if you could go to the next one, please. And then this is 2020, and this is across the street again at that same house we saw earlier, where in this case, the water did not get quite high enough to go in the front door, but it got high enough to go in the garage and down into the basement, tore up the basement again. Okay, next one, Kyle. This is a shot, and this is from 2014, in the park that shows where those pipes are at there, the culvert head. And you can't see the culvert head, and that's because it's submerged underwater. If you look far across the screen, you can also see the park road, and you can see a line there that shows what the water elevation was. It's gone down some now since I got down there to take these photos. Earlier photos, I was busy fighting floodwater. I didn't have time to go down to the park and take photos. So this shows that the culvert can't handle it, so then what does the water do? It has to fill up this whole area before it can move on. And what does it do when it's filling up? It backs up. And so that's how it affects the Parkview subdivision. The next one, please, Kyle. This is a downstream shot, shows the swimming pool in the distance, shows how much water has built up here. And this is, again, after the water has gone down some, so it's not the full elevation. The next one, Kyle. This shows where the water has to go around and go through in order to be able to get out of there. It takes a long meandering path, and of course it fills up everything in there. Next one, Kyle. And then it shows where it finally can get over, and this is what the problem is with the culvert, is you've got this berm across there, the water has to rise high enough until it can flow over the berm and then move on down. And one of the interesting things that this photo shows is that if you look beyond it just a little bit, okay, you've seen all the flooding upstream, you can see that the area down by the city garage is still flooded. So what that says is that holding all that water back doesn't prevent flooding downstream. Okay, eventually it fills up, it goes over, it's going to flood down below anyway. And that was one of the conclusions of the 2011 report, is that there was no, by taking out the culverts, there was not an impact on flood elevations downstream of where the culverts had been. So in other words, the water could go through sooner, but the level of the flood would still be the same. That was one of the conclusions. So, I think, is there another one, Kyle, or is, that's it? Okay, thank you. So, one of the things that Kyle spoke to was the $500,000 that's committed to flood control in the 2022 budget, and that $500,000 is grant money, actually. That's not what the city is committed to. That $500,000 is what was called the CBDG grant, which has strict limitations on how it can be used. And one of the limitations, as I understand it, is that it cannot be used to deal with the culvert problem in the park. So what that means is that while all of that is taking place, which is a good thing, I have nothing against improving flooding in general in the city. I think that's a great thing to do because I've experienced it, don't want to. But that doesn't deal with the problem that we're here tonight to talk about. And so we have to figure out something else, that we can do. We did look at a couple of other alternatives, the transportation utility. There was discussion of a stormwater utility. The previous city council decided to table that until this city council came in. There hadn't been any discussion of it, and so with that being the case, I thought it was time, okay, we start talking about something else. One of the downsides of those two issues are that it takes a long time for either one of them to be put in place. The transportation utility could have moved ahead pretty quickly because there wasn't a lot of state regulations preventing it at that point in time. But there was a fair amount of citizen opposition, and so the city council decided at that point to leave it go and to be able to get a more in-depth evaluation if that's the way the city decides to go. But with that in-depth evaluation, then that extends the timeline for when it could actually be put into effect. The transportation utility, that requires going to referendum, as I understand. A lot of additional cost associated with that. There's time involved with that also. And so again, that's not any kind of a quick fix. One of the interesting things to note is that for the removal of the culvert at the deer pen, the city considered that to be a hazard. And so, I came up with the funding to do that. And as I understand it, the money was borrowed. And so when he had took care of it, that's part of the project that we were talking about. So, okay, that aspect of it is already done. As Jim had mentioned, not only is our flooding a hazard, it's also a health hazard. So it is both, there's a monetary hazard, there's a health hazard, and there's a safety hazard associated with all of that. In the 2008 flood, one of the videos that Ann had that she wasn't able to show had fire people out there rescuing people. Our neighbor next door to her had on a cast, crutches, had to be taken out through a window. So definitely a safety issue. With all that being said, I think that the photos have demonstrated the significance of the problem. And I think that with that being the case, the city needs to seriously look at moving it ahead quicker or sooner rather than later. The 2011 report had talked about a number of priorities, and removing the culverts in the park was a low priority because of cost primarily, well, and other things. But it still was on a 5-year timeline, which meant it should have been out by 2016. It's not. Okay. Kyle talked about in his information about different commitments that the city has with respect to that CBDG grant. He's got a certain amount of money that's already committed in order to take advantage of that. So as we go off into the future, money is already committed to different projects coming up. And one in specific, when I was talking about priorities a moment ago, one in specific that I'm aware of, and I kind of wonder, what should come first, as far as what the city should spend its money on. There is a TAP grant that the city has applied for, and it's coming up. And it's a sizable amount of money, and what it involves is putting a bike path from one part of the city to another part of the city. And the Department of Transportation is kicking in $1.4 million. But the city still has a couple $100,000 commitment in order to take advantage of that. And so in the meantime, we're sitting back here with our neighborhood getting flooded, or the potential for being flooded, when money is being spent on things like that there. And to me, that doesn't seem like the priorities might quite be in order. And so the long and short of it is that the situation has gone on much too long already. My understanding is the city is in a position where they still have the borrowing capacity to be able to take this project on and the additional projects that you've got coming up. And so that it seems reasonable with things that are coming up in the future that are going to be looking for city funding that should go ahead and take advantage of it now. You're not going to find lower borrowing rates, I think, anytime in the near future. So it seems like it's an opportune time to go ahead and put this on as a strictly budgeted item. Move ahead with a transportation utility at some point in time, or stormwater utility at some point in time, if you want to deal with other aspects. But I think to make the Parkview neighborhood sit there and wait just doesn't make any sense. And so I'm asking, and the neighbors are asking, that this is budgeted for the upcoming year. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ron. And I understand completely what you're speaking of. If you've been boring enough to follow me on council, stormwater has been the big thing that I've been about my entire time up here. And I, too, tried advocating for that to be removed in the past. So I am very much for moving forward with things of that nature. I was told before, funding, and also we do need to, of course, take into consideration the rest of the city. So whether or not it's possible to remove that before we do other things, I don't know. I'm not an expert. I do think we need a more comprehensive plan and a more comprehensive study of the stormwater of the city in general. I think the stormwater utility, personally, I think that's an excellent way to address some of those, but again, that isn't fast, and this is something happening, and I do think it is very urgent and important. So I suppose now we have to kind of discuss amongst ourselves what we want to see move forward, if anything. So I'll open it up to council with thoughts. Or actually, before that, Jason, could you tell us do you know if removing that culvert would have any potential negative impact further down the line?
Yeah, thank you, Ian. So this issue at hand obviously is a very complex issue. It's been around for quite some time. There's a lot of pieces at play here. I mean, if you look back at the original study, obviously some things have changed over time. One of the things to look at is we continue to receive heavier, more intense rainfalls. That's obviously factoring into a development. I think Bruce had mentioned. Although all of those developments are meeting the ordinance requirements over time, they're still releasing a larger volume of runoff. And so, to kind of get to your question, we see a lot of things happening kind of dynamically right now. So 89 next year will be reconstructed. They're actually putting a bigger culvert in. Just by understanding the volume and flow, more water will be able to pass. And so we do look at the deer pen has been removed, just failure of culvert. I don't know how many of you know the history of that, but we were having large sinkholes in the ground that were collapsing almost consecutively as we were repairing them. And so what really you have to look at this kind of system as a whole. And, it certainly is obvious that the water there's quite a bit of grade difference between Parkview and then what I would say down by the deer pen. And so what happens is by removing this culvert in between, there was, and I want to jump back, and sorry I'm jumping around here a little bit. There's a lot of thoughts running around in my head. One of the discussions was removing the culvert in the study. There was a bridge or an obstruction that used to be by the football field that was removed. So that was actually completed. That didn't remove the actual culvert underground, but it removed that obstruction, and that did help quite a bit, I think. But yeah, so if we look at how we're conveying water through the system, we're continuing to make these improvements and open up the channel and make more water volume flow available to move downstream. And as Kyle had mentioned, that was one of the concerns that I did have from an engineering standpoint. There is an understanding that it will still flood downstream, but are we making that worse? And, as we progressively see these things open up, the study didn't anticipate the 89 culvert getting larger and letting more water through. So the study didn't necessarily back in 2010 predict that. So the study didn't recognize that we're going to have more water flooding Kiwanis. And we know Kiwanis obviously is a major flood point as well as School Street and DPW. So all of these places flooded as well when these people got flooded. So what we've talked about is with this CBDG closed money is looking at doing some improvements on the lower stretch to help alleviate some of that we know as we make these improvements on 89 next year, as we make some of these improvements by taking out the culvert at some point. Hopefully we'll be prepared to convey that water through the system. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there is a lot of water here, and it kind of builds up. It was very interesting last year. I think somebody had mentioned in 20 there was a lot of flooding, and there was a picture somewhere somebody had here. We've seen a unique event. We had 4 or 5 inches of rain in a very short period of time, I believe it was, if I remember. And by the time I got out there and I drove down, so for example, I drove down James Street and nothing was flooded down here, but they were all flooded. And within the time I drove up to Parkview, up Avalon, and turned around and came back, James was under 3 feet of water. I mean, it was like a wall of water that was moving very rapidly through the system. And the nice thing about the 20 event, well, not nice thing, but the interesting thing was the water receded very quickly on the backside. Now, what that tells me is we're making improvements that is helping get that water through the system. So it did flood, and we still have some issues, but in my opinion, we are making these improvements and we are getting it to move through the system where, if you look back at some of the other flood events historically, when it flooded, it remained flooded for days, you know, in essence, where it wouldn't even come down, or it came down very minor. So I don't think you can judge any one event to say that this is it. And I don't think any improvements that we make long-term is going to guarantee that there will never be an issue, because we could always have a very catastrophic rain event or a situation that would cause flooding. But as we improve and we fix these areas, we're effectively, if you will, moving water through the city. And I think, you know, the problem that they're talking about certainly will help convey the water, but there still are some other things that we're talking about, like these improvements on the lower stretch, increasing the culvert capacity on 89. Obviously, we opened up the deer pen as part of that kind of, I would say, an emergency project with the county. So as we go, that would be what I would certainly look at, just being aware of. And I think your point is we have to understand that each project's going to have an impact. And as Kyle mentioned, I believe, was we want to be careful, not that we're solving one problem, but now exacerbating something somewhere else. And, you know, it's not that we don't want to neglect what they're talking about. I completely agree that still has to be resolved. But we also, you know, want to just be aware of that movement of water through the system.
Thank you, Jason. All right, so then, is anybody?
Can I add a couple of comments?
Yeah, go ahead, Ron. I do, just one quick moment. I do want to remind everyone, since this meeting had to be rescheduled for lack of quorum, we do have to be out of here within about 30 minutes tonight, so. All right.
Okay, two things. Number one is that when, as Kyle, or as Jason mentioned, when he got down to James Street, the water was already 3 feet high, which means that once it's filled up the upper area, that it moves on through, there is flooding there. Whether it's going to be worse or not, I agree that we don't necessarily know that, but the downside of that is then by keeping that burn there, you essentially have kept Parkview in a bathtub. And once the drain is plugged up, it's going to take and flood whatever's in that bathtub, and that's us. And to me, it doesn't make sense to spread the pain around for a longer period of time rather than simply taking care of that issue and then, you know, doing the CBDG grant. I think that's a great thing to do. I know there's some issues with flooding downstream, but I just don't think it makes sense to spread the pain. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I'm personally concerned about just removing that right away, and that was one of my thoughts before, is remove that culvert. But I mean, I don't have enough understanding of how these things work to say that we should do this. My only thought is, you know, kind of like using your drain metaphor. If we pull the plug in the bathtub, but it's still clogged underneath, are we really doing any good, or are we just, you know, doing more damage? I don't have that level of professionalism and understanding to know that. I need to understand that this is a good thing in order for me to personally support any one project. I'm a really big advocate that we need a comprehensive study and a comprehensive understanding done right away so that we know where we need to start. Like, is that something that we should do right away, or do we need to start further down? I don't know. But
For us newbies, when we came upon I'm sorry, I thought it was for us newbies on the council, when we were first getting information on the TIF, we had an informational session where we were able to ask questions. Is this something we could do with Jason? Give us a little bit more background, allow us to ask questions like Ian was saying, and how do we put together a comprehensive study on this in a rather quick manner?
I think the big thing is, and kind of what Jason was alluding to, since the information that we have in the study that was done, things have changed drastically. I think what I would personally prefer to see right away is for us to move forward with the spending to do a comprehensive study now, so we know what our issues are now and how to best tackle it and have a good overall understanding of our city's stormwater. Because this is not something that's going away, and this is something that is going to continue to get worse. And like Ron mentioned, it's going to continue to get more expensive to address in the future. It's something that needs to be done, in my opinion. But we need to do it right, and we need to do it right the first time, so that we're not just throwing money at one problem, creating another problem and another problem, and more spending that we simply can't afford. But that's my 2 cents. Any?
Might I just add that we've heard a couple references to studies, 2011, 2017, we're about due for another one then, 2022, but the problem doesn't get solved, families have to get raised. So I just ask if you could try to, do something about this.
Understand completely. Go ahead, Kyle.
I was wondering if Jason wanted to come up again and explain the urban non-point source grant that I believe we applied for and what that would accomplish if we were awarded that, because I believe that is still in the works.
Yeah, the reference that Kyle makes, and for those of you who may have just come on, there was a grant that we completed, I believe it was right about the time frame the election was, for urban non-point source grant funding for the DNR. They provide a grant to help with studying not necessarily flooding, but water quality and other components within the city. And we completed the grant and submitted it. We will not know if we're successful with the grant until this fall, but the grant covers a very large comprehensive look at all the stormwater, including the quality and nutrient loading and things like that throughout the city. The hope is that we're successful with the grant. That does not fund the flood portion of the study, but we did represent to the DNR that we were committed to doing that as well, that we wanted to look at the flood control or the quantity citywide as well. We do know that there's several spots around the city that we do have flooding concerns. Obviously, this one is probably the most prevalent, but we wanted to kind of look at it in that context. And the city obviously had some, responsibility for costs associated with that study. So we kind of scoped out or put together kind of what we believe would be the approach that would be, and we're hopeful we can get the study. Now, that certainly is just a piece of the equation, because that doesn't guarantee that the money comes and the study moves forward. I will say with the 2011 study, there was a lot of stuff in there and I think, Sarah, you bring up a good point. There was a lot of things in there that I think are great conversation points. One of the bigger things also that we had noted in that study, just to bring up, is there is large sedimentation in this creek. A lot of the channel has filled in. And what essentially we concluded was that by dredging out or cleaning that out, there's a lot more storage or space for the water to store within the creek. And it may not seem like it's a very large creek, but when you look at the linear length of it throughout the city, that amounts to a fair amount of volume. And that's just one piece of the equation as well. And as far as the study, we do have that. The model was done in 2011, so to currently update the model to add a couple new cross sections or run some new scenarios based on today's conditions with the improvements that have been made, I don't think is a large effort or a large cost in terms of what we could do. So maybe having that ability to have that Q&A and to look at that model, particularly for this piece, is something that I think we could do reasonably quick without looking at that comprehensive study, but notwithstanding the need for that, large-scale piece. And we're hopeful that obviously the grant will come through for the city, and we'll be able to do that as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Jason. Is there any other thoughts, or is there anything that anybody wants to see move forward to? Mary?
I share your frustrations. It must be just incredibly challenging. And I think I would like to do something right now. I guess I am concerned, as Sarah is, that since I'm so new to this, that if we made a decision and said, okay, go ahead and let's take out the culvert, but not really knowing, for sure what kind of impact that's going to have, is that really going to fix it, then it would be, as I think Ian said, maybe spending money on the solution to this problem that really is not the best solution. So I know when you heard the word study, you thought, oh boy, we're just putting this off for a while. But I feel like I really need to know more too before we make a decision on the way the city's going to go. But I do want to assure you that I feel very concerned about what you've talked about tonight. And I would certainly like to see us do whatever we can as a city to alleviate this problem.
Thank you. Trina Reed?
The photos were definitely quite moving and also very familiar. We're on River Road, and the water coming up to the doorstep has been a chronic fear. It's a rarity, but it's definitely a fear that's happened a couple times. This is going to be one of those things where it'll be impossible to make a guarantee of zero flooding throughout the city. But yeah, I definitely think we need to look into, some remediation and whether or not we have another comprehensive study or if it's more surgical, looking at small areas, starting at the outside and, possible sediment removal and the obvious things of trees that have fallen in. Yeah, I definitely think we need to, at least make some steps.
Thank you, Trina. So I'm hearing that we may have a consensus to perhaps the next committee of the whole have this come back to the agenda and discuss potential remedies that we could, and so that we have time to all of us to look at what the information that we do have in greater depth, and hopefully have Jason here to answer some questions and things for us. Aside from that, I would personally also like to start seeing if we could get some bids of what it's going to cost to remove both the culvert and dredge. I personally, in my limited understanding, I have been looking at this for a long time, so I am limited, but I do have some background in it. I don't know if removing the culvert's going to do a whole lot more without dredging as well. So I think we need to do multiple things in tandem or in the right order. And I think that's something that we need to discuss, and we also need to know the cost of, so that we can budget for it and accomplish it. And I would also personally like to see the stormwater utility come back up for discussion. That was a utility that I personally advocated for and wanted to move forward with, but was put down and replaced with the transportation. I think the stormwater utility is much more logical for the city of Columbus and much more needed. So I would also like to see that come back up for discussion and potentially go to referendum. Trina?
Oh, no, yeah, I also had a preference for the stormwater utility over the transportation one, and then kind of, moving funds a bit. I just like the directness of the stormwater utility. I would definitely want to make sure we have our dates given to us so we know when our deadline for getting it on to the next election would be.
Awesome. Thank you, Trina. Go ahead, Paul.
I too was in support of the storm utility as well, and I think that talked about priorities. I think it's a huge priority, and obviously there's a tremendous need to move ahead with it and fairly quickly. So
Right.
I too was scared by the term study, because I said, already studied again, but yes, we need to move on this end rather quickly.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Mike?
Yeah, I agree with what Ian said also. I would like to get some cost on the dredging, and if the dredging would be a quick fix for now to alleviate some of the pressure until we do more down the road. So at the next meeting, if we could get some information on that, that'd be great.
I don't know how quickly we'll get any estimates or bids, but I mean, just so that staff knows that that's something that we want. course, that's complex and, you know, it's difficult. I know the county was a great resource last time and very, very much less expensive than others, so perhaps we could work with them again. Anything else from? Okay, perfect. Do you have good kind of direction? Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone that came to speak today. We'll likely have something about this on the next meeting, so I'd like to invite you all back if you'd like to attend again. With that, I would like to move on to item number 7. And so where am I? Yep, I am in the right one. So many papers in front of me. Yep, item number 7. Review and discuss the assets for the copy machine at the fire department.
All right, so this is a simple process in our asset disposal program. The copy machine broke down. The repair company wasn't really willing to fix it, didn't think they could fix it, and actually the DPW old copier that was replaced was able to be subbed in here. And so this is actually just asking for them to be able to give away the non-functioning copy machine from the fire department that's 12 and a half years old. The copy company will pick it up and take it away when they come to do normal service.
Awesome. So pretty straightforward. Any questions or thoughts? Everyone's, I would assume, good to move forward with that. And then let's item number 8, review and discuss sidewalk replacement bids. Let's see here. So in our packet, there were 2 bids that came in. The recommendation is to go with the Parisi Construction Company because they were the lowest bidder. The 2 bids that we had were Parisi at $28,943, and is it Renhack? I'm probably butchering that at $32,423. Renhack, yeah. So, and all of that and more detailed information is in everyone's packets. I don't know if everyone's had time to review all that info. Trina?
Oh, no, I was just a bit confused. Are they to replace 27 linear feet on city-owned sidewalk, or is this
So the 27 linear feet is curb and gutter. There's another 1,777 square feet of sidewalk, and then other amounts of 6-inch concrete sidewalks, and then some of the felt and other reinforcing bars.
Oh, thank you. So this is for all city-owned replacements?
Correct, and this year, this is really the first year, this has kind of been coming for a while. This is the first year of our sidewalk program, and we focus primarily on the public areas that were city-owned, and then in coming years, it's gonna kind of transition to a blend of other city-owned areas, but also some privately owned sidewalks that will bear some cost for the homeowners. We wanted to kind of step in first and show our commitment to it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was just remembering from a couple of years ago when we were looking at the, possible having some privately owned sidewalk, and then we picked different sections of the city to be looked at, and I think that was mostly for grinding and whatnot, but I wasn't sure if this was just city, but yes, thank you.
Any other questions and comments? Is everyone okay with moving this to the next meeting with the recommendation of Parisi? Awesome, perfect, thank you. And then next up is number 9, to review and discuss electronic agendas. So this is something that we've talked about in the past a few times, is replacing all of this paper with a smarter, more electronic version. Did you have any info that you wanted to go over with this, Kyle?
Just real briefly, seeing as time is short, really trying to gauge the level of interest at this point. There are some costs in moving in this direction. There are some direct cost savings maybe a few $1,000s in paper. It's actually more of an efficiency standpoint where we would see the gains in freeing up Pat from having to print off, thousands of pages every time and distribute the packets manually. It would give us the flexibility potentially to get devices for the council members, and there are some good options. I don't know if everyone had time to kind of look at some of the examples, but there are multiple firms that do programs like this, and then we would be looking at, I guess, what types of features are you looking at, and what is the involvement of the city in providing devices for the council members so that they can access the material and kind of gain that efficiency of having your packet show up instantaneously right to a device.
Right.
So I guess just really gauging interest if we want to develop more information on this.
Yeah, personally, I would love to look at more info on it, both in just the electronic agendas and also potentially having a dedicated device of some sort for each council member. I think in the long run, I don't think it's going to cost us anything, or much, if anything, because of the cost savings, especially with like staff's time. And I mean, printing paper is expensive. I print out a lot of paper in my work too. It costs a lot of money. Ink is not cheap. And of course, it's environmentally sound. Trina, I know you have an opinion.
Oh, yes. Yes, I am comfortably certain that I am the only one that would prefer to go the paper routes. I find it much easier to read and take notes on paper, but I am sure I am most likely in a minority of one.
And you could still, as my understanding is, we could still provide you with a paper packet. So, we could just do it all. And I'm just going to throw out here that when I was elected to school board, we started off with paper packets, and then we went to electronic, paperless, I think the following year, and it was just such a wonderful change. So I highly recommend it. I also always used my own computer for school board meetings. Other people were given devices. I used my own. That worked just fine. So I think that's an option too. But yeah, I've been bugging Kyle about this, I think, since I was elected. So I'm very much in favor of it.
Perfect. Sarah?
I am in favor of this as well. Not only are we going to save some trees by less paper, but I approached Kyle about this as well because it'll allow me to set fonts and types and things so I can see them. I've had some difficulty in meetings being legally blind, being able to see some of the stuff. And so this was part of the reason we embarked down the road to help me a little too.
Thank you, Sarah. Paul?
I would prefer the online or the electronic version as well. I can understand Alder Reed's trepidation and wanting a tangible object. So we could do a nice hybrid approach. If you want a paper copy, so be it. Even that cost savings or time savings would be well worth it. And I don't know if we even have to get fancy, like with a certain program. I mean, you print it to a PDF, you put bookmarks there, and and it doesn't even have to be like a special, company that does this for us. We could create the PDF, make bookmarks, and it'll take you right to a topic on hand, and again, so you're not having to spend money elsewhere. It's just buy a Adobe Acrobat Reader and be done.
I totally understand that view. We are going to be, I think tonight we are going to skip item number 10 and put it on to the next, and the rest, basically, 10 and 11, because we're going to have to get out of here. But I understand the thinking about Adobe. I think that puts more stress on our staff and will create more work for them, having to go through and bookmark things, having potential, and that's something that we'll look at, when we address this, when we talk about it and look at different options. I just think that could potentially create more stress for like Pat and things, having to individually bookmark so that it's easier for us instead of just having a program that does it.
One of the programs automatically put the links and the bookmarks in so that you could bounce back and forth between documents.
Yeah.
And it was really nice.
Yeah, exactly what I mean. Let's see, well, actually, on
11
number
probably
11, we
keep.
can probably,
Yeah.
what?
Oh, yeah, I was just at my line and thinking we should keep 11.
Yeah, I
because
think
that's
we
coming
have
up
time for that.
fast.
That's fast. The ad hoc, while it is very important, I think we don't have a lot of time to discuss. That's more lengthy. So let's move on to item number 11, and review and discuss the August 3rd council meeting for National Night Out. So of course, our regularly scheduled meeting would be on the National Night Out. So we could, typically we would move it to Monday the 2nd. Is that, everybody good with that?
Do we have to do it at 5 again?
No, this was a one-time
Sorry,
thing.
this was hard.
This was a one-time thing because of the school, the school board is next. So, perfect. So let's move that forward to the regular meeting to approve that. Then it'll be August 2nd. And let's table item number 10. With that, if there's no more discussion, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Perfect. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Perfect. We stand adjourned. All right. Good night, everyone.